Today we will be sharing a miraculous testimony sent to us by a brother who lost all hope of walking again, but Jesus came through for him. I pray as you listen, God will also do miracles in your life. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more miraculous testimonies. Say amen in the comment section, like and share this video to someone who needs to hear it. The doctors told me I would never walk again. They showed me the scans, explained the damage to my spine, and said I needed to accept my new reality. I was 38 years old, and my life as I knew it was over. But 18 months later, I stood up from my wheelchair in front of hundreds of people. The doctors still cannot explain what happened. But I know exactly what happened. God healed me. My name is David Chen, and I live in Dallas, Texas, in a neighborhood called Oak Cliff on the south side of the city. I am a firefighter, or at least I was. I have been married to my wife Lisa for 12 years, and we have 2 sons, Brandon who is 10 and Mason who is 7. Being a firefighter was not just my job. It was who I was. It was in my blood. My father was a firefighter, and his father before him. I loved serving my community, running into danger when everyone else was running out, saving lives. I loved the brotherhood at the station, the sound of the alarm, even the smell of smoke on my gear. But everything changed on March 15, 2021. We got a call about a warehouse fire on the east side of town just after 2 in the afternoon. It was an old building that stored industrial supplies and materials. When we arrived, the building was already engulfed in flames. Black smoke was pouring out of every window, and we could hear explosions from inside as chemicals ignited. My team and I geared up quickly and went inside to search for anyone who might be trapped. The heat was intense, and the smoke made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. We were making our way through the building, checking rooms and calling out, when I heard a loud cracking sound above me. I looked up and saw the ceiling collapsing. Large wooden beams and metal supports were coming down. I tried to move, but I was not fast enough. A massive beam came down and hit me directly on my back. The impact threw me to the ground with such force that I heard something snap. Then everything went dark. I woke up 3 days later in the ICU at Parkland Hospital. My head was foggy, and I could not remember what had happened at first. Lisa was sitting beside my bed, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She held my hand and told me I was going to be okay, but I could see the fear in her face. I tried to move, and that is when I realized I could not feel my legs. Panic set in immediately. I asked Lisa what was wrong with me, why I could not feel anything below my waist. She started crying harder and told me the doctor would explain everything. The doctor came in soon after. His name was Dr. Morrison, and he was a spinal surgeon with over 20 years of experience. He was professional but serious. He pulled up a chair beside my bed and told me the beam had crushed 2 of my vertebrae in my lower back and severely damaged my spinal cord. He showed me the MRI images on his tablet, pointing to the area where my spine was fractured and where the spinal cord was compressed and injured. He said they had done emergency surgery to stabilize my spine and prevent further damage, but the injury to the spinal cord itself was permanent. He said the damage was too severe, that the nerves were destroyed, and that I would never walk again. He said I would need to use a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I just stared at him. I could not process what he was saying. Never walk again? How was I supposed to live like that? How was I supposed to work? How was I supposed to chase my sons around the yard? How was I supposed to carry my wife across the threshold on our anniversary like I did every year? How was I supposed to be a husband, a father, a man? I felt like my whole identity had been taken from me in an instant. Everything I was, everything I loved about my life, was gone. The next few months were the darkest of my life. I was transferred to a rehabilitation center where I went through multiple surgeries to repair the damage to my spine as much as possible. Then came the endless physical therapy sessions. The therapists were kind and patient, but their goal was not to help me walk again. It was to help me adjust to life in a wheelchair. They taught me how to transfer from the bed to the chair, how to navigate my home, how to drive a modified vehicle, how to do basic things I had never thought about before. But I did not want to adjust. I did not want to accept this new reality. I was angry all the time. Angry at the situation, angry at the fire department for sending us into that building, angry at God for letting this happen to me, angry at myself for not moving faster. Lisa tried her best to support me, but I pushed her away. I barely spoke to her or the boys. When I finally came home from the rehabilitation center, I stayed in our bedroom most of the time. I could not stand the look of pity in their eyes. I could not stand seeing the modifications they had made to our house. The ramps, the widened doorways, the special bathroom equipment. Everything reminded me of what I had lost. Brandon and Mason would come into my room and ask me to play with them, to watch a movie, to help them with their homework. But I would tell them to leave me alone, that I was tired, that I did not feel well. I watched them walk away with sad faces, their shoulders slumped, and I hated myself for it. But I could not bring myself to be the father they needed. I felt like half a man, useless and broken. What kind of father could not even stand up to hug his own children? Lisa tried to talk to me many times. She would sit on the edge of the bed and tell me that we would get through this together, that she still loved me, that the boys needed me. But I would turn away from her. I blamed her for nothing, but I could not face her love when I felt so worthless. Our marriage was falling apart, and I knew it was my fault, but I could not seem to stop pushing everyone away. About a year after the accident, I hit rock bottom. It was late at night, probably around 2 in the morning. Everyone was asleep, and I wheeled myself out to our garage. I sat there in my wheelchair in the dark, staring at the tools on the wall, tools I used to use to fix things around the house, to build things with my boys. Now I could not even reach most of them. I was sitting there thinking about ending it all. I thought my family would be better off without me, that the life insurance money would give them a better life than I ever could now. I thought about how much of a burden I had become. Lisa had to help me with so many things. She had taken on extra shifts at her job as a nurse to help with the medical bills. The boys had stopped bringing friends over because they were embarrassed about their dad in a wheelchair. I sat there for hours, crying and asking God why he had let this happen to me. I told him I could not do this anymore, that I was not strong enough. I told him I had tried to be a good man, a good father, a good Christian. I had served others my whole life. Why was he punishing me? I was ready to give up. I was planning how I would do it. But then I heard the garage door open. It was Mason, my youngest son. He was in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes, holding his stuffed dinosaur that he slept with. He must have heard me leave the house. He walked over to me slowly, looking worried. He said, "Dad, why are you out here? Why are you crying?" I did not know what to say. I tried to wipe my tears and tell him to go back to bed, but he would not leave. He climbed into my lap, careful like he always was now, afraid he might hurt me. He wrapped his little arms around my neck and said, "I love you, Dad. Please don't be sad. You're still my hero." Those words hit me like a punch to the chest. Something about that moment broke through the wall I had built around my heart. Here was my 7-year-old son, telling me I was still his hero even though I could not walk, even though I had been the worst father for the past year. I held him tight and cried, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than anger and despair. I felt like maybe, just maybe, my life still had purpose. The next morning, Mason came to me with a big smile on his face. He said, "Dad, my baptism is next Sunday at church. Will you come and watch me? Please? I really want you there." I had not been to church since before the accident. I had stopped praying, stopped reading my Bible, stopped believing that God cared about me or heard my prayers. But I could not say no to my son. Not after what he had done for me the night before. So I told him I would be there. That Sunday morning, Lisa helped me get ready. She picked out my clothes, helped me get dressed, and then helped me into the van. The drive to New Life Church felt strange. It had been so long since I had been there. When we arrived, Lisa got my wheelchair out, and we made our way into the building. People came up to me with hugs and words of encouragement. Pastor James shook my hand and said he had been praying for me. I tried to smile and be polite, but inside I felt empty and disconnected. We made our way to the front of the church, and I positioned my wheelchair in the aisle so I could see the baptism pool clearly. The service started with worship songs. The band was playing, and people were singing with their hands raised. I sat there listening, not really engaged, just waiting for Mason's baptism. I was going through the motions for my son. But then something strange happened. During one of the songs, I think it was, "How great is our God." I felt a warmth in my legs. At first, I thought I was imagining it because I had not felt anything below my waist since the accident. But the warmth grew stronger, like heat spreading through my body, starting in my lower back and moving down through my thighs, my knees, my calves, all the way to my feet. My legs started tingling, a sensation I had not experienced in 18 months. It was like pins and needles, but stronger, more intense. I looked down at my legs, confused and shocked. And then my right foot moved. Just a little twitch at first, but it moved. My heart started racing. I stared at my foot, willing it to move again, and it did. Then my left foot moved. I could not believe what was happening. I thought maybe I was dreaming, that this could not be real. Lisa was standing beside me singing, lost in worship, and I grabbed her arm hard. She looked down at me, startled, and I said, "Lisa, I can feel my legs. They're moving." She thought I was confused at first, maybe having some kind of spasm. But then she looked down and saw both of my feet moving, my toes curling and uncurling. Her eyes went wide, and her hands flew to her mouth. She started crying and saying, "Oh my God, oh my God." I gripped the arms of my wheelchair with both hands and tried to push myself up. My legs were shaking, weak from not being used for so long, but they were responding. They were holding my weight. I stood up. For the first time in 18 months, I was standing on my own 2 feet without any support. The people around us started noticing. A woman behind us gasped. The worship team kept playing, but some of the singers had stopped, staring at me. I took a step forward. My legs were wobbly and unsteady, like a baby learning to walk, and Lisa quickly moved to my side to help steady me. But I was walking. I took another step, then another. The pastor stopped the music. He said into the microphone, "Wait, everyone look. Do you see this?" The entire church turned to look at me. I kept walking, tears streaming down my face, making my way toward the front of the church. The entire sanctuary erupted in shouts and tears. People were praising God, crying, laughing, hugging each other. Some people fell to their knees. The pastor came down from the stage and embraced me, tears streaming down his face. He kept saying, "It's a miracle. We're witnessing a miracle." Brandon and Mason ran to me and I bent down. I actually bent down and hugged them both. I had not been able to hug them like that in so long. Mason looked up at me with the biggest smile and said, "Dad, you're standing. God answered my prayers." They rushed me to the hospital that same afternoon. Dr. Morrison was there even though it was a Sunday. He ran every test imaginable. He did new MRI scans, X-rays, nerve conduction studies, reflexes tests, physical exams. He kept shaking his head in disbelief, muttering to himself. He called in other specialists, neurologists, orthopedic surgeons, to look at the results. They gathered around the computer screens, comparing the old scans with the new ones, pointing and discussing in hushed voices. Finally, Dr. Morrison came back into the room where I was sitting not in a wheelchair, but on the examination table with my legs dangling over the side. He sat down across from me and just stared for a moment. Then he said, "David, I have been a doctor for over 30 years. I have seen thousands of spinal cord injuries. And I am telling you right now, what I am seeing here is not possible. Your spinal cord was severely damaged. The nerves were destroyed. We had clear evidence of that on multiple scans over the past 18 months. But the scans we just took show a completely healthy spinal cord. The damage is gone. The nerves have regenerated. This does not happen. Spinal cord injuries like yours do not heal. But somehow yours did." I looked him in the eye and said, "I know exactly how it happened, Dr. Morrison. God healed me." Dr. Morrison is not a religious man. I knew that from our previous conversations. But even he, with all his medical training and scientific knowledge, had to admit that there was no medical explanation for what had occurred. He said it was the most remarkable and unexplainable case he had seen in his entire career. He said he would be writing about it in medical journals, though he knew his colleagues would be skeptical. That was almost 2 years ago now. I have been walking ever since. I went through months of physical therapy to rebuild my strength and muscle mass. My legs were weak at first from not being used, but they grew stronger every day. 6 months after that day in church, I was jogging. 8 months later, I returned to active duty at the fire station. My captain could not believe it. He had been at my retirement party when I had to leave the force. Now here I was, back in uniform, ready to serve again. My fellow firefighters threw me a party. It felt like coming back from the dead. My life is completely different now. I wake up every morning and thank God for the gift of walking, for the gift of life, for another day with my family. I do not take anything for granted anymore. The simple things that I used to ignore, walking to the mailbox, climbing stairs, standing in the shower, now fill me with gratitude. I play with my sons every chance I get. We play basketball in the driveway, go hiking on weekends, wrestle in the living room. I hold my wife close and tell her I love her every single day. Our marriage is stronger than it has ever been because we went through hell together and came out on the other side. I go to church every Sunday and lift my hands in worship because I know what God did for me. I know I should still be in that wheelchair. I know that by every medical standard, I should be paralyzed for life. But I am not. I am whole. I share my story everywhere I am invited. I have spoken at churches all over Texas, at fire stations across the country, at hospitals and rehabilitation centers. I meet people who are going through their own struggles, who feel hopeless and broken like I did, and I tell them not to give up. I tell them that God still performs miracles, that He still hears our prayers, that nothing is impossible for Him. I have prayed with people in wheelchairs, people with terminal illnesses, people who have lost everything. I do not promise them that they will be healed the same way I was, but I promise them that God is real and that He cares about their pain. If you are reading this and you are facing something that seems impossible, I want you to know that the same God who healed me can help you too. Maybe your healing will not look like mine. Maybe it will not be physical. Maybe God will heal your heart, your marriage, your mind, your finances. But God is able to do more than we can imagine. You just have to hold on, keep praying, and trust Him even when it does not make sense. Even when you are sitting in your garage at 2 in the morning ready to give up. Even when the doctors have given you the worst news. Even when everyone else has stopped believing. You have to keep believing. I should be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. That is what every doctor told me. That is what all the medical science said. But I am not. I am walking, running, working, living. And it is all because of God's grace and power. He gave me my life back when I had given up on myself. He restored what was broken. He did the impossible. And I will spend the rest of my days telling people about what He did for me. Because if He did it for me, He can do it for you too.